Hi everyone and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm making one of my absolute favorite summer desserts, a classic cherry pie completely from scratch. We will start with a buttery flaky homemade crust and then fill it with the sweet tart cherries that bake down into a thick juicy filling. It's a little rustic, super comforting and perfect with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. So let's get started and I will walk you through everything step by step. If you don't want to use store-bought crust, let's make it first so it has time to chill. In a food processor, I combine 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then I'm adding 8 tablespoons of cold cubed butter, make sure it's straight from the fridge so it stays nice and firm. Pulse everything together just until the mixture looks like coarse crumbs, with some small chunks of butter still visible. That's what gives us that flaky texture. Next I'm adding 1 tablespoon of vodka and then 2 to 3 tablespoons of ice cold water, just enough to bring the dough together. Run the food processor for a few more seconds, then check the dough. It should hold together when you press it with your fingers. If it's still crumbly, you can add another tiny splash of water, but don't overdo it. Once the dough holds together, I'm turning it out onto a working surface. Give it just a quick press to bring everything into one piece. You don't need to knead it, just shape it into a flat round disc. Then I'm wrapping it in plastic wrap and placing it in the fridge to chill for at least an hour. That rest time helps the gluten relax and keeps the butter cold. While that's chilling, we can move on to the cherry filling. Take a big saucepan and add 7 cups of pitted cherries. I'm using frozen, but you can definitely use fresh if they are in season. Just keep in mind that frozen cherries have more liquids, so you will need to cook the filling a bit longer to get it thick. Now I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of sugar, a pinch of salt, half a teaspoon of almond extract, this part is optional, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Turn the heat to medium and start stirring occasionally while everything begins to heat up. Meanwhile, in a small bowl, mix together 1/4 of a cup of water and 1/3 of a cup of cornstarch. Stir that really well until there are no lumps, and then set it aside. We will add it in once the cherries start to bubble. Keep stirring the cherries until you see they've released their juice. That's when it's time to add all of the cornstarch mixture. Pour it in and keep mixing. At first it will look runny and cloudy, but don't worry, just keep it on medium heat and stir regularly. After about 8 to 10 minutes it should start to bubble and thicken. You will know it's ready when the mixture turns glossy and look like real cherry pie filling, instead of soup. When it's ready, set the filling aside to cool down a bit at room temperature. When it's no longer hot, transfer it to the fridge and let it chill completely. Now that the filling is chilling, let's roll out the crust. I'm using a 9-inch pie dish for this recipe. Take your dough out of the fridge, sprinkle it lightly with flour, and start rolling it out. I'm making a very thin crust today, so this dough will be enough for both the bottom and the top. If you prefer a thicker crust, you'll want to double the dough ingredients. I will leave those measurements for you in the description below. Once your dough is rolled out to your desired thickness, gently lift it using your rolling pin and place it into the pie dish. Don't stretch the dough, just let it fall naturally in the corners and lightly press it in. Now that we have fitted the crust nicely into the dish, I'm trimming the excess dough. Since I'm making a thin crust, I didn't divide the dough in half. First, I cut off the extra with a knife, and then I go in with scissors to clean up the edges and make them even. I'm saving all the trimmings, we will use those for the top strips later. After you've trimmed the dough, gently fold the edges under to give them some structure. Then, to shape a nice wavy edge, I place 2 fingers on top and use my index finger from the other hand to press it up from underneath. This gives you that classic flatted pie crust look. When the crust is shaped and ready, use a fork to poke a few holes in the bottom. This helps prevent air bubbles while it bakes. After that, place the whole pie dish into the fridge to keep the dough cold while the filling is still chilling. Now gather all the excess dough trimmings, press them back together, and wrap them in plastic. Since this dough softens really quickly, it's best to pop it into the fridge so it can firm up again before we roll it out for the top strips. Once the trimmings have chilled and feel firm again, take them out of the fridge and lightly flour your surface. Start rolling the dough out into a thin sheet. It doesn't have to be perfect, just wide enough to cut about 10 strips. To make sure it had enough dough, I measured and made my strips about 1.5 inches wide. I'm using a pizza cutter to slice them. It's quick, easy, and helps keep the edges nice and even. When your strips are ready, take the pie dish out of the fridge, along with the cherry filling, which should be completely chilled by now. Pour the filling into the crust and spread it out evenly. Now place the first few strips across the top of the pie, spaced evenly apart. Then take the remaining strips and wave them over and under to create that classic lattice pattern. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Once it bakes, it will look beautiful no matter what. Once the lattice is done, trim any excess dough if needed and gently press the ends of the strips into the edge of the bottom crust to seal everything in place. When you're finished, you can run over the edges one more time to fix the wave and neaten everything up. Then take one beaten egg and gently brush it over the entire top crust. This will give it a beautiful golden shine when it bakes. I also like to sprinkle the pie with a little raw sugar. It gives the crust a little crunch and a pretty sparkly finish. Now place the pie on a baking sheet. I actually forgot to do that at first, but it really helps catch any dripping and keeps your oven clean. Bake it in a preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for the first 20 minutes. Then reduce the temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and continue baking for another 25 to 30 minutes. Keep an eye on the crust. If the edges start to brown too quickly, just loosely cover them with foil. The pie is ready when the filling is bubbling and the crust is a deep golden brown. Once the pie is out of the oven, let it cool at room temperature for at least 2 to 3 hours. I know it's tempting to cut it right away, but the filling needs time to set, otherwise it will be too runny when you slice it. Actually, the best thing you can do is let it rest overnight. That way the cherries have time to set up beautifully. And that's it, your pie is ready. If you enjoyed this recipe, don't forget to give it a like, leave me a comment and subscribe for more cozy bakes like this one. Thanks so much for baking with me today, and I will see you in the next video.